Now, for more on this story, I'm joined here in the studio by France 24's international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Now, Doug, we do have this Friday the U.S. President Donald Trump taking to Twitter, as he usually does, but this time speaking about Pastor Andrew Brunson, now who's been detained in Turkey since October of 2016.
Right.
What do we got?
Right. What do we have? Look, for our viewers who have not been following this story, if you want to understand almost anything involving Trump's dynamic with foreign leaders, look no further than domestic U.S. politics. In this case, the upcoming November midterm elections. Evangelicals, and this pastor is very much a magnet for Christian evangelicals in the U.S. It's not a small constituency. It's about a quarter of the U.S. population, tens of millions of people. And 80% of them, 8 out of 10 evangelicals, actually supported Donald Trump in 2016, despite the fact many pundits said, no way evangelicals are going to rally to Donald Trump, a New York real estate magnate. But they did. And he's looking, the evangelicals, Trump supporters will say, their support is not in jeopardy here. They are absolutely going to support Donald Trump again. No fear of that. They love the fact that he's put Supreme Court picks, that they love, nominated them. They love the fact that a lot of his cabinet and for his vice president, Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, all very staunch evangelicals as well. They like the fact that Trump is a champion of religious freedoms, all of this. But Trump needs to make sure they are mobilized for these elections, and this plays very well to that. I just want to show a tweet. This was his latest tweet that he put up this morning. Well, at least his latest tweet on the Turkish issue. We could show it, where he basically front and center turns this Christian pastor, this preacher, Andrew Brunson, who's basically been living in Turkey for 2 decades, but he's originally a preacher from North Carolina, very much evangelical and very much being turned into sort of a hero / pawn / American patriot by Trump in his tweets there. You could see what he wrote. So this man is front and center now. And the thing is, you can argue that the evangelicals themselves, how much are they really actually enamored of this Christian pastor? How much of this is a product of Donald Trump, turning him into their great champion and making him into this figure? He was an obscure figure before this. No one really knew who he was, but he's become front and center in what is not just now an international sort of tit-for-tat between Turkey and the U.S., but also very much front and center in a domestic political equation. Donald Trump in his midterms, he doesn't want the Democrats to take the House.
Well, we've got the pastor who's been held on terror-related charges in Turkey, as we said, since 2016. And then what we've seen recently in the run-up, we've got then this kind of tit-for-tat response that you mentioned between Washington and Ankara. And in response, we've seen the Turkish currency, the lira, tumble as a result.
And up until now, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish president, basically blaming every single force in the universe except himself, economic mismanagement. Look, the fact of the matter is the Turkish economy has been in pretty dire straits well before this whole scandal over this pastor erupted. He's been blaming foreigners, lashing out, not really taking the advice of any of the economists and central bankers who say, the high interest, about interest rates and policy and all of that. What he has been doing, however, now is calling on using the nationalist card, the Trump card, so to speak, to rally Turkish voters against the United States and say, basically do not use dollars and do not buy American products. And we're talking what sort of, you can see them there, anything from tobacco to booze to cars. And here's one. Electronic products, right? Namely, the U.S. Products such as the iPhone, which is the crowning irony of Recep Tayyip Erdogan calling on Turks not to use iPhones, not to buy Apple products, is you'll remember during the coup, in the aborted coup in 2016, he himself took to FaceTime afterwards to plead with his supporters to rally behind him. He basically saw down the coup against him, that coup attempt, on Apple's FaceTime product. So now basically saying there's also Samsung, you could use that instead. But it's very much going tit for tat. These are two very egocentric leaders right now with authoritarian streaks, Erdogan and Trump, and they have found a match in one another. Unfortunately for Erdogan, Trump is the president of a much larger economy, and one that at the end of the day, if investors have to weigh in balance who they're going to listen to, they're probably going to side with Donald Trump. Even if they're not ideologically affiliated with him, at least the markets are going to probably side with the United States in this dispute. So ultimately, you can ask, will someone have to blink, and will that be Erdogan right now? The Turkish lira recovered a little bit this week, but it's still down. It's lost about 25% of its value in the past week.
All right, Doug. Thank you for that.